So you can look at your internal systems and say, hey, what are we doing to make sure that data is correct before we send this off to like the credit reporting agencies? That way we're not kind of falling into the trap of reporting inaccurate data and generating complaints in that regard. Hello everyone, I hope you're having an awesome day. So over the last several weeks, we've talked a lot about regulations, we've talked about changes to regulations, we've talked about process improvements, and we even talked about some different ways that you can use your receivables to generate some cash flow for your business. Now we've covered quite a bit over the last several weeks, but when it comes to like regulation and violations that might take place because of regulation, you might have, well, at least at this point, you might have asked yourself, well, how often does this stuff really happen? I mean, I've done everything to prepare my business for violations of like the FDCPA and similar type regulations that affect my business now. But how often am I going to hear from like, say, the CFPB or the FTC, the FCC? And there's really not a perfect way to find out how often those things are going to happen. However, you can kind of approach like a system of predicting the future a little bit and being prepared when those things do take place. So it's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's a matter of when it's going to happen. And there's a couple of different ways you can do that. One is you can go right to the horse's mouth, the CFPB, and you can download any data they have from the previous year and start analyzing all of the charts and text that they put out there based on their internal systems and the information they've collected. Another way you could do it is if you have partners that you've teamed up with to manage your accounts receivable, whether that's a third-party billing or debt collection agency or an attorney, you can talk with them as well just to kind of see what they've experienced in the past. And they're good resources because this is really pretty much all they do. So they're used to this sort of thing, like regulations changing and getting into compliance when they do change. But let's start with like the CFPB. So they publish like an annual report, and the report will tell them like how many complaints they had, in what industries, in what area of the debt recovery cycle it happened. And this is all useful data because you can line up like your industry and your processes with their data, and you can get a pretty good idea of where you need to focus most of your attention. Now let me give you an example of that. So let's say you're in the banking industry, you look at this data, and you notice that most of the complaints are coming from how this information is reported to the credit bureau. So that's something in like the banking industry that you have direct control over. So you can look at your internal systems and say, hey, what are we doing to make sure that data is correct before we send this off to like the credit reporting agencies? That way we're not kind of falling into the trap of reporting inaccurate data and generating complaints in that regard. But you can drill down pretty deep on some of these reports and get even more data than that. So an example of that might be, let's say that automobile loans, you noticed that there's a lot of complaints just in your industry in general, and it usually happens when it is handed off to like a third-party billing or debt collection agency. So let's say you normally handle these things in-house, but you're thinking about using a third-party billing and debt collection agency because you're having a hard time keeping up. Well, that means that with this data, you can say, hey, we're going to have to spend more time than we thought to do our due diligence when we are selecting a third-party debt collection partner. Because of course, any good business wants to keep complaints at bay, and your third-party billing and debt collection agency can be instrumental in helping you achieve that goal. So really, what are you doing? You're looking at what industry, you're looking at what part of the recovery cycle, and you're also looking at the different types of issues that the complaints are about. Now keep in mind, 2020 and data that comes from 2020 was quite a bit different than 2019 and 2021 because of course we had the pandemic. So for example, like student loans, they had probably a low amount of complaints because there just really wasn't a lot of activity with them. They were either in forbearance or deferment. So if there's not a lot of activity, then of course complaints are going to be minimal. But you can still use 2021 and 2020 to kind of see where the future is kind of headed. You look at data from 2020, which was a very odd year, and then you look at 2021, which is when everything started to pick back up, and those differences can tell you a lot about where the future of your accounts receivable are heading. But also don't forget, a lot of associations that are related to the accounts receivable management industry, they do a pretty good job of sorting through this data as well. And they can often aid in helping you understand where most people are running into difficulty. But if you'd like to talk about this a little bit more, give me a call, send me an email. I'd be happy to look at your particular company, what objectives you have, where you'd like to be, and if I can help you get in a better place tomorrow than you are today, I certainly want to be available. But as always, be well, be safe, don't take any unnecessary risk, and I hope to talk with a lot of you soon. Take care. Hello, Sean Martin, Director of Business Engagement. So if you like this video, be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube. But don't forget to visit our website, check out the services we have to offer. Essentially, Partners Financial Services is a full-service accounts receivable management firm. So we specialize in billing, loan servicing, and debt collections. Some of the industries that we serve are the education industry, everything from a proprietary school all the way up to a college, university, higher educational level. Also banking, financial institutions, credit unions, and then a handful of miscellaneous industries that we do some debt collections for. So yeah, give us a call, send us an email, let us know what you have in mind, and we can see if our services can line up with your objectives and help you get in a better place than you are today.